Hi everyone, it's Corey Stoker again from SkySwitch, and today we're going to be looking at Zapier or Zapier. It's actually pronounced Zapier according to their Twitter, but it looks like Zapier because it's similar to the word rapier, the old swords. Anyway, we're going to look at ActionURLs a little bit more in depth, and we're going to use Zapier as our example because Zapier is a little bit more powerful when it comes to ActionURLs in comparison to IFTTT, which can just trigger some simple actions. The main difference with Zapier is you can add additional things into the URL or as a post and pass that through, and Zapier can break it apart and do different things with it. So the idea with this video is we're going to look at 3 different integrations with Zapier. We're going to do a Google Sheets integration, we're going to do a quick email integration, and then we're going to do a Slack integration. We're going to do a number of things. We're going to look at registration failing. We're going to look at incoming call, outgoing call type logs. And we're going to look at changing your Slack status based on your current activity on the phone. We're also going to go through some troubleshooting that you might have to do when you're looking at ActionURLs or trying them out your first time. It may not work as expected, so I want to give you a few things to try out if you're not sure yourself. And last, we're going to do this with auto configuration. Last time I showed you guys the GUI, and I like working in the GUI just for initial testing, but that's not the way you should do it. You should always apply any changes to the auto configuration file once you're comfortable with the change that you made. So the GUI is a great place for testing temporarily, but those should migrate to the auto config file, and I just want to show you how to do that as well as where to find some information. Today we're going to be looking specifically at Yealink. We are going to be looking at other phones as I continue to make more videos with ActionURLs and ActionURIs, which are kind of the opposite, where the phone can receive a request. So enjoy this video. I'll try to mark the video with the different integrations, so if you're only interested in, say, like the Slack integration, that's the only part you have to watch. Okay, we're going to start with Zapier. And Zapier is very much like IFTTT. It'll take an incoming action and then you can do other things with that. So connect it with other applications. You can build multi-step zaps in here. So you can actually have one ActionURL trigger several different things, which is pretty neat. Now Zapier has a free version of the application. They also have paid versions. Unfortunately, webhooks require one of the paid versions to use. It does come with a 14-day free trial if you want to try it out, but it is a very useful application and I recommend at least trying it. So let's take a look. We're going to get in and make our first zap. In here we're going to choose the application that we're calling, and we're going to call on webhooks. And then we're going to choose an event trigger. So we have retrieve a poll, where this polls for changes to like websites or URLs. We have catch a hook and catch a raw hook. We're going to be doing catch a hook. You can use catch a raw hook, which will pull the information from like a post body. So depending on the type of phone, you may want to catch a raw hook. For Yealink, it sends GET request, and you can include additional information at the end of the URL, which we're going to use in this case. So we're going to do a catch hook. Now they have a silent mode, which enables Zapier to respond with an empty body. So if you're having trouble with the response from the phone, or if you look at a packet capture and it's not working right, you may want to just try silent mode. In my recent experience, silent mode has been necessary on some phones. So I'm just going to select silent mode. I'm going to start there, and I can always go backwards if it doesn't work that way. Okay, so we're going to copy the URL. And then I'll click on continue here. It'll take us to the next step where it will allow us to test. So this is a little bit nicer in Zapier compared to IFTTT. We can actually see the incoming test. And if we're just looking for a raw webhook, we can actually see the request and make sure that we're getting it. So I'm going to hit test and review. And then we're just going to put the URL in a different page. And you'll notice that this here is not going to return anything, and it's not going to respond. And that's just because a regular hook inside of Zapier is going to require some additional information either in the post or at the end of the URL. So we're going to go back into the URL call here and simply add an event and a variable. A Yealink would do this automatically based on variables that it has preset. So here I'm just going to do question mark test equals hi. And if you wanted to do multiple of these, you could just hit an ampersand and separate them that way. But I'm just going to include one for the test. Sometimes this will come back with a response in the HTTP body, but in this case it didn't. But we can verify if it hit here. And in my experience, this can take a minute or so, so just be patient and watch for it, and there it is. And we can see query string, test, and hi. So there we go. This is indeed working on Zapier, and now we can actually convert and go over to the phone. So I'm going to close this window here. We'll go and look at the Yealink. If we go under Features and then Action URL, I use a Yealink GUI a lot because these question marks actually show you the override. So we're actually going to apply these in the portal, but we can get additional information by clicking here. We can go to Desktop IP phone, simply select the phone that we're using. In this case, I have a T57W. And on this page, we're going to look for the administrator guide. The administrator guide is going to show all of the overrides, good descriptions of what they actually do. I usually have one of these on my desktop. You can see I've already been looking at this one. This details out action URLs, gives you all the information about them, shows you the event list, and then it shows you a bunch of variables below. So we have a variables value list, and these will basically return variables from the phone. So if you do a MAC address, the phone will return the MAC address of that phone. So we can use these to insert different data into the URL, which will cause Zapier to respond differently. It'll parse apart the different events and variables, and then we can use that for our next application that we're connecting with. Now, outside of that, I found this pretty cool application on GitHub, and it's open source MIT license, so you can use it all you want. You can redistribute, modify it. If you go to this site, and I'll include it in the YouTube description, you can click on this, and this is made by someone named Anteric. You can basically put in the base URL and click on the variables that you want to display in the URL. So we can go back to Zapier, click on our custom hook. I'm going to copy that. We're going to throw it in here. And then the variables that we want to display would be just checkboxes. Let's log our outgoing calls. And if we wanted to log the outgoing calls for a domain or something like that, we probably want the MAC address. We want the display remote. We want the display local. And the display local, display remote are showing the user on both sides of the call, basically the local user and the remote user. So if it's an inbound call or outbound call, you can use it for both sides. We can also do called number. Then we're just going to look for outgoing call. So it's right here, and we can copy that. So for now, I'm just going to throw that inside of a notepad. And then to get the override, I'll just go back to the Yealink and go to outgoing call and highlight this here. I'm going to take this and throw it inside of my notepad. And now we're going to apply this as an override in the phone. So I'm not going to put it in right here. Simply going to go into inventory and phone hardware. We're going to go into button builder, and you can do this via NDP as well. Both are the same, so if I look at the overrides here, they're going to be the same as what I have in NDP. So I'll hit done and then save and resync. And we should see the phone update pretty much instantaneously. And there it is. So at this point, we can do another test with Zapier, and all we need to do is trigger an outbound call. So I'm going to go back to find data, get more samples, and I will call outbound. I'll hang that up, and we can see our other hook there. So if we take a look at it, it'll show all the data that we're sending and receiving. So display local and display remote. Apparently the display actually shows the display name, so this is the display that's on the phone. That's okay, we can use it in this case. It looks like we would just need the other parameter, the local, instead. I'll go ahead and use this. Now I want to go over to Google Sheets. And I'm going to create a new sheet, and we're basically going to include this information that we're pulling from the phone. So again, that was the MAC address, the display local, the display remote, and the called number. Actually, we'll change this to okay, and we'll name the sheet something. And it is stored in my drive. So from here we can go back to Zapier, hit done editing, and do this. Now we're going to choose the application that we're going to trigger with the data. So we're going to do Google Sheets. I already have this connected to my Google account, so I just need to select Update Spreadsheet Row, and you can do a bunch of things here. You can delete rows, you can add new spreadsheets, add new worksheets. So I'm going to update Spreadsheet Row. Oh, I actually didn't mean to update Spreadsheet Row. I meant to create Spreadsheet Row, kind of like autopilot there. So let's try this again. Go to My Google Drive, outgoing calls 1, sheet 1, and then we're just going to select the data that we're filling. So we have a plus button off to the right there, and for the MAC address we're going to do query string MAC, local display name, remote display name, and called number. We'll hit continue there. Here it's going to ask us to test it. So we'll just hit test and review. And it may or may not add the data here into your spreadsheet. It may add it and then remove it. It's just testing the ability to see if it can add it. So in this case it did add it. And here let's just make a few calls and see how quickly this happens. So I'll do a call just to voicemail.
2, 3, 4.
Oh, hold on, let's back up. This Zap is actually not even turned on, so we're going to hit done editing. It's on. We're going to name this Sheets outgoing call, enter, and go back. So we can see this is turned on, and now it should be working. So I'm going to hit 7, 2, 3, 4 again.
2, 3.
And we should see that show up pretty much instantly. So you can think of different things you can do with this. You can give a spreadsheet to your customer and log outgoing calls or incoming calls or transfers or a number of things. Just based off of the variables and event list from the Yealink, you can do all sorts of things. You might use this for troubleshooting. You might use it to watch registration status or so on. Let's go to the next step, and we can actually do some registration alerts. So I'm going to go back into Zapier. We're going to make a new Zap. And here we're just going to select webhooks again. I feel comfortable that this is working, so I'm not going to go test this out in another browser tab. I'm just going to enable silent mode. I'm going to copy the URL, hit continue. I'm going to go back to the action URL generator. I'm going to paste that in. And if we're looking at registration status, I'm going to get the MAC address, the IP, the model, the firmware. I don't necessarily care about any call data if we're just watching registration. So we have registered and unregistered, and we have register failed. Now, unregistered, I believe, is actually when the phone sends an unregistered message or the PBX sends an unregistered message back to the phone. So we're not going to look at unregistered. We're actually going to look at registered and registered failed. If we copy the registered failed, I'm going to just throw that in my notepad again. We'll go back to the phone, we'll select register failed, and go to the question mark. So I'll hit this override. I'll throw it in my notepad here. I'm going to copy this and then go back to the dashboard where we're going to insert that override. hit done. Save and resync. We should go back to the phone, refresh the page, and see that it is there, and it is. So now on registration failure, we should get a hook that shows this data here. I'm going to go back to Zapier. I'm not quite ready to test this yet. I do have a way to make registration fail. I'm on a PEP link right now, and on a PEP link I can just block SIP traffic, and after about a minute it should unregister. So I'm going to go to content blocking. I'm going to hit SIP and save, and this won't actually save until I apply it, and the phone will take about a minute for that registration cycle to finish up before it re-registers. Now I'm going to go back to Zapier. I'll hit the test and review. I will apply changes, and we will simply wait. The phone is sitting in front of me, so I'll be able to tell you when it goes unregistered, and then we can watch for the hook. Okay, so the phone just went unregistered, and pretty much instantaneously we got the hook. All right, so we can see the local IP address, the firmware, the phone, the MAC address. I'm going to go and turn this back on. We know it's actually working. Network, content blocking, save and apply. Phone should re-register very quickly. I'm not getting any kind of registration alerts, and it's already registered, so we won't see anything there. But we know that this is working. Let's go to the next step. And what we can do with this is an email alert, and it can connect to SMTP, or it can connect directly to like your Gmail account. So I'm going to try this with my Gmail account. We'll send an email. And again, this is already linked with my Gmail account. We're going to send the email to someone, and I'm going to use Gorilla Mail so I don't have to expose my email on this video. Gorilla Mail is just like a temporary mail server. It's great for people who get a lot of spam, or if you think someone's going to send you spam, just give them a Gorilla Mail address, and you can temporarily receive email. It's random and then go away. So I'll take this address here, go back to Zapier. We're going to send it to that address. It'll be from myself, from name, alert, and in the body of the email we can include this other data here. So let's go with registration failed. Actually, we'll name this registration failed, and then we'll include other data. So you could obviously send this to like your alert email to watch for registration. You can log it to a spreadsheet. You could send notifications in all sorts of different ways to let you know that a customer is losing registration. All right, so that should be good. And then we will test and review. And test email was sent from Gmail now. We're going to turn this on and name it. Okay, so that is all set. And this mail server may be a little bit slow in receiving alerts, but let's do the same thing again. We'll block SIP traffic. I'll wait for registration to fail. Okay, registration just now failed, and we got the alert pretty much immediately. So very cool. Now I'm sure you could see how useful something like that would be for a lot of different reasons. So let's go back to Zapier one more time. We're going to do one final zap, and we're going to do a Slack integration. Okay, so first off, I should mention that Slack can accept webhooks to do things directly. It's just a little bit harder to do things with Slack. You're kind of limited with the basic configuration. So for most people, it's going to be much easier and much more feasible to do this through Zapier. We actually have technicians that have built a simple application for Slack for their own personal account to update their status when they're on the phone. But this is probably a much easier, cleaner, better way to do it. So I'm going to make another Zap, and we're going to do the same exact thing. We're going to go webhooks. We're going to catch a hook. We're going to do this silent. I'm going to copy that, continue, and we'll go to the URL generator. Actually, I'm going to close out these other unneeded tabs now. I'll paste that in there. And we're going to want to watch both when I get on the phone as well as when I get off the phone. So I'm going to take all of these away. And we're going to want call established and call terminated, which is down here. Now, what I want to see is the remote data of the user. So this will show the remote caller ID name, I think. And we're going to use that in the Slack status update. So what we're going to be doing is when I get on the phone, my Slack status will update to show that I'm on the phone. And when I get off, it'll update again to show that I am free. So I will take call established. I'll put that again in my notepad off the screen here. We'll go back into the Yealink. We'll go over established. We'll grab the override. And we're going to want to do a separate one for terminated. So grab terminated. Now I'm just copying that for a different step because we need to send a different Zap for the established versus the terminated so we can add and remove status. So now I'm going to go into the dashboard. We're going to go back into the overrides. I'm going to go ahead and remove these two overrides, but I'm actually going to remove them from the phone as well. And to do that, in case you don't know, if you just deleted these overrides, they would stay in the phone until the phone's reset. But with Yealink, you can do a %, null %, and that will remove whatever is in the field. So that's very useful for a lot of different reasons. So I'll do it in both of these. It should remove both of those overrides. I will take the new action URL. We'll paste it in there. I'm going to hit done. Save and resync. Go back to the phone, refresh again, and it worked. So now we have the call established, and we can go back to Zapier. We can test this out.
2, 3.
Okay, so that caught it. It showed the remote party, and it does show the whole URI, but that's okay. So I'm going to go and hit done. Then we're going to go over to Slack. And we have a bunch of different things we can choose with Slack. And this is where it kind of differentiates with Slack. In Slack, the default options are like to send a message or to update a channel or things like that. It's a little bit easier to do things like set your status. So I'll continue. Okay, so now inside of my Slack, I'll pull this over and I'm just going to have to block out some pieces of it. We need to find the emoji that we're going to launch when I'm on the phone. And they have some phone emojis, so we'll use this one. It is telephone_receiver. So let me select my account. And you can do a status text. So here I'm going to say on the phone with, and then we'll insert that remote query string. And here telephone_receiver. Okay, then we have an expiration time. We don't need that. I'll continue. We'll testing review and turn this on. And we can see it changed my status up there. And done editing. So we'll call this Slack on the phone. Okay, so then we can basically make a duplicate zap. We'll do webhooks, catch a hook, silent mode. We'll copy that. We're going to go ahead and put it inside of the action URL generator. And this time we're going to go for terminated. So I'll copy that, and that I'll put inside of my notepad. We already have the override, so I'm just going to copy and paste this into the phone's config. And hit done. Save and resync. Just make sure that it showed up here. Okay, so inside of Zapier, we'll just skip test. We'll go back to Slack. We will set a status. Continue. Select my account. Okay, and here it just says if both text and emoji are empty, your status will be cleared, so that's what we want. We'll continue. Test and continue. Turn that zap on. We're going to name it Slack off the phone. And I should see my status clear now, and it is. So from here, I'm going to call my DID because this is actually a test phone. Okay, so we see on the phone with the actual DID. Very cool. We hang it up, should clear that status, and that is great. So now people on Slack can see if I'm on the phone and who I'm on the phone with. So these are just a number of things, and there's infinite possibilities with what you can do with action URLs. I did want to show you a little bit of troubleshooting, and I actually ran into a problem when preparing to shoot this video. I have a packet capture, and I'll show you the packet capture. So here is from when my T57W just wasn't working for action URLs. Zapier wasn't getting the hook, Zapier, whatever, wasn't getting the hook. So I had to do a packet capture. There are several ways you can do this. You can look at level 6 system logs. You can do a packet capture. I chose to do a packet capture first. Even if you're not familiar with Wireshark, I'm going to try to show you an easy way to recognize this. So this is a packet capture directly from the Yealink. A lot of times you can just filter on DNS, and what you're looking for should become very apparent here. I could see that the Yealink was doing a DNS lookup for hooks.zapier.com, and it returned several different IPs in the DNS response. So from here, I can look at the packet number where this happened. This happened at packet 33, and I can pretty much assume that it's going to happen right after that packet was sent. So I'll remove my filter. We'll look right after packet 33, and we can just look for one of those IP addresses. It was 52 and 54 dot something. So it's right here, 54.210.149.115. And this is the message, or one of the TCP messages going to Zapier. Now I can right click this, and this might get a little bit too in-depth for some people watching this video, but I can right click this, go to conversational filter, and select TCP. This will show the complete TCP transaction. You don't need to know a lot about TCP to look at this. A lot of times the issue will be very apparent. Now, I should also note that we can't see what's in the actual packets because this is done over TLS, and it's an encrypted conversation, but I can see straight away that there's an alert level fatal, description unknown, CA. And I just happen to know that CA is a certificate authority, so I knew where to start looking. And you may see several things here. You may see that the TCP handshake request is sent towards Zapier or wherever you're looking and you're not getting a response. Then you can look into a router issue or a routing issue. Maybe your traffic just isn't getting there. You may see an incomplete transaction. You may see a number of different errors that will kind of lead you in the right direction. If you get stuck on this part and you're not sure what to do, then you can certainly submit a ticket into our support. You can go direct to Yealink support. We'll try to help you out. I have seen certain version 83 firmwares that are failing to do any kind of action URLs, and just upgrading the firmware to version 84 kind of fixes it. So in order to fix this unknown CA issue, I just went into my Yealink, and this is just kind of a temporary fix while I shot this video. Went into trusted certificates, and on version 84 it only accepts trusted certificates, and for whatever reason it did not know Amazon is a trusted CA. So if I went over to hooks.zapier, you can click on the lock icon there, you can view the certificate, you can see where it's from. It comes from the Amazon root CA. So this is something that Yealink would need to fix. You could also download the certificate and just simply upload it directly to the Yealink phone, so upload trusted certificate. But for the purpose of this video, it was just faster and simpler to turn that off, and I will follow up with Yealink to see what the problem is there. So on a Yealink, if you do have trouble with action URLs, start with a packet capture. If you need help looking at it, contact our support. We'd be happy to help you. And to do that, you just go to Settings, Configuration, you start the packet capture, you replicate the action to send the action URL, then you stop, and you have the packet capture there. For syslogs, you would need level 6 syslogs. So if you go down here, enable local log should be checked already. You just change this to level 6 and export this shortly after you've done your action. It should be apparent in there as well. You can filter out the syslogs if you wanted to look yourself. You can just look at the MAC address.log or the sys.log depending on which Yealink you're on, and just look for part of the URL. So you could just do a find in the notepad text document for Zapier, and hopefully it'll lead you the right direction. If you don't see the request in either the packet capture or the local log, it means something's probably wrong with the URL or the firmware. So go and double check to make sure you don't have any kind of spaces or weird characters. And you could always just try another firmware. It might be a simple firmware issue, and changing to a different firmware resolves it. Okay, great. I hope this video helped you. I'll continue to do these videos, and your feedback is appreciated. So if you have questions, comments, just let me know. Thanks again.